The Galactic Council watches the Terran transmission, amused by the lone ship Earth claims will represent them. A lone ship? Laughable. But then they see what it does, what it doesn't do, and suddenly nothing feels laughable anymore. We received Earth's response, the archivist droned, static blinking across her translucent head. Finally, drawled Lord Captain Zavoth, flicking a claw across the glowing data slab. Took them long enough? And, asked Vutor, whose race had eradicated a species just last cycle for spelling their ambassador's name wrong. The screen flickered, a human face, female, calm, young, smiling faintly, like someone hiding the punchline of a terrible joke. This is Earth. We are sending one. The screen cut, silence, that kind that has corners in it, no exit, no air. Did she mean one ambassador? Zavoth asked, confused. No, said the archivist, eyes narrowing. One ship. Laughter. Ugly. Unanimous. One. That's adorable. 3 days later, the ship appeared. It didn't warp. It didn't blink. It didn't roar into space like everything else. It just was. Parked at the edge of the Council's protected zone like it had always been there. No escort, no radio, no light signature, a blank slab of matte black. Unmarked, not even moving. Is it disabled? Asked the defense AI. Is it even real? Asked the fleet strategist. They sent a probe. The probe returned, or half of it did. Not scorched, not sliced, just cut cleanly, at a molecular level. What kind of weapon does that? Vutor hissed. It didn't fire anything, the tech replied. No thermal spike, no EM burst. It didn't even move. Then the human ship sent a second message. Approach if you wish. We're watching. AVD Spike 3. Council dreadnoughts moved in. Massive. Glorious. Loud, with confidence. The kind of vessels that crack moons open as a warning. They surrounded the Terran craft in a perfect triangle. Formation. All guns live, said Captain Takesh. Let's scare the ape. Ping it again, another officer added. See if it knows who it's dealing with. They sent a high-frequency data blast. Nothing happened. Then the middle dreadnought vanished. No explosion, no flash, just gone. The triangle became a line. The line became a memory. The other two ships reversed instantly, spinning away with full evasive thrusters. One commander vomited mid-retreat. He didn't know why. Back at the council chamber, they reviewed the footage. Frame by frame, one showed a faint shimmer, a ripple on the edge of the Terran vessel's hull. No projectile, just a suggestion of movement, as if the ship didn't destroy the dreadnought, as if it decided that it no longer belonged in this dimension. I've never seen tech like that, Zavoth whispered. It's not tech, said the archivist. He turned. She didn't blink. It's a philosophy, signature line. They didn't build a ship, they built a decision. The final council debate descended into unease. Why only one? Someone muttered. Because one was enough, someone else whispered. They're bluffing, a general insisted, teeth clenched. The archivist turned slowly. No, she said. They're teaching, and from the black ship's hull, as if hearing every word, a message appeared, without signal, without request. Just one phrase. You thought it was mercy. It wasn't. Where is the rest of the dreadnought, the Dehu? Question hovered in the air, unanswered. Not because no one had the data, but because no one had the language. The remaining council commanders stared at the footage on loop. One frame, a fleet formation. The next, absence. It hadn't been destroyed. That would have meant debris. This was worse. Vutor stood by the holomap, his claws tracing the spot where the missing ship once existed. You said no projectile? None, the data analyst. Confirmed. No energy beam, no mass acceleration, no spatial warping. It didn't engage, it didn't activate. It didn't even acknowledge. Zavoth's voice dropped to a whisper. Then what the hell was that? A junior officer, new, eager, foolish, answered, It was a message. Everyone turned. A message of what? Vutor asked sharply. The officer swallowed. Of patience. Someone laughed bitterly, the kind that pretends it isn't panic. Patience? It erased a dreadnought in a blink. Exactly, the junior said. It only erased one. That landed like a punch to the ribs. The ship had been surrounded. 3 ships. Identical signatures, identical armaments, but it had only removed the one that pinged it, not retaliated, not responded, just edited. Back on Earth, beneath the surface of what was once the Greenland ice sheet, Admiral Layla Kerr stood inside the hull room. The warship's neural interface glowed faintly under her hand. Still quiet, she asked. The AI within her spine answered through thought alone. There. Scrambling, recalculating, 1 fleet gone silent. 4 colonies recalled patrol units. 57 PSYOPs alerts received from outer council systems. Good, she muttered. Let them overthink. Outside, orbiting council space, the Terran ship didn't move. It never had to. It simply existed. AVD, spike inside the council chamber, chaos brewed. The Zolari ambassador demanded immediate retaliation. The Dreltar called for diplomacy. The Halveth quietly packed their belongings and disappeared from the quadrant. Then the humans sent a second message. This time, it wasn't a voice. It was a recording. The view began with a battlefield, alien, broken, smoldering. A Terran outpost. In ruins. A boy, no older than 10, dragging his sister's limp body toward a collapsed shelter. Blood everywhere, then static, then the boy again, grown up, standing aboard the one ship, staring into the lens, saying nothing, but his eyes said everything. We've made a mistake, Vator whispered. We underestimated what one child can become. The clip ended. No words followed, none were needed. Admiral Kerr watched from her terminal, fingers interlaced. The feed pulsed with reactions, panic signatures, system lockouts, chatter blackouts. They see him now, she said. The AI pulsed. Back, they still don't understand, Kerr nodded once. They will? The Council launched Operation Folding Net. A 1 trillion credit trap, gravity snares, temporal distorters. EMP clouds and dimension lock protocols. 100 ships surrounded the Terran craft. This time, no mistakes, no warnings. They didn't hail it. They just activated the net. Confirmed temporal freeze, the tactical lead announced. Confirmed. The ship is locked in phase. No light, no time signature, no motion. Cheering broke out until the lights dimmed, and from the ship's original position, now empty, came a whisper. Not sound, not thought, but emotion. One emotion, amusement. Then, one by one, every ship in the folding net turned inward, not exploded. Not sabotaged, just wrong. Thrusters reversed, shields fluctuated, crew reports garbled, as if the ship suddenly forgot what space was supposed to do. Some inverted themselves. Some spun until time unraveled. Some simply stopped existing with a soft blink. Call it off, Vator yelled. It's not us anymore, a scientist screamed, voice cracking. And then, where the Terran ship had been, it reappeared. Exactly. Where it was, untouched, unbothered. Still AVD spike back on Earth. In a listening station 3 miles beneath Peru, a technician burst into tears. Not fear, relief, because the experiment had worked. The message hadn't been in the ship's weapons, it had been in their restraint. In council space, 2 more species surrendered without a shot. Not from fear of death, from fear of irrelevance. Because now, every warship in their database looked childish. Every strategy looked like a tantrum, every weapon a toy. Why one ship? Someone asked again. No one answered. But the truth was forming like frost on glass. Not because Earth didn't have more, but because Earth only needed one to change. The shape of fear. Signature line. They built a ship so silent it echoed through empires. In one of the outer colonies, a rogue general launched without permission. He armed a solar lance warhead and locked onto the Terran ship. "I'll end this circus," he growled. He launched. The warhead reached the black craft's outer proximity and stopped mid-space. No collision, no detonation. It floated there, frozen, then it reversed, fired backward, right back into the general's ship. Except it didn't explode. It entered, without breaking the hull, and never came back out. The general screamed, for hours, not in pain, but in memory. What he saw inside his own ship afterward was never recorded. Only his final word, alone, AVD, spike a planet voted to join Earth unprompted, not out of alliance, out of instinct, because animals sense storms before they arrive. Vutor returned to the council chambers one last time. He stood before the war map, now useless, and whispered, "Who are they?" The archivist turned. "They're what we would be, if we remembered our dead." He sat down, and for the first time in council history he cried. The Terran ship pulsed one final message, just a ping. No encryption, no code, just data. But the data wasn't information. It was a seed. Inside, simulations of every war Earth had endured, every loss, every betrayal, every colony that screamed into the void with no answer. The council saw the weight, and they felt it, because the seed ran not on language, but on grief. Every receiver cried. Some bled, some went blind. One species went extinct, voluntarily. The Terran. Ship turned slowly, not away but upward, toward the stars above council space, as if to say, "We didn't come to fight. We came to remind you what you forgot, what it means to fear just one." The Terran ship didn't move for 37 hours, and still every motion in council space revolved around it. No ship launched without triple confirming. Trajectory. No transmission escaped encryption, no system booted without checking for invisible echoes. Every race, every fleet, every sovereign mind was no longer calculating Earth as an enemy. They were calculating Earth as a constant, like gravity or death. Inside the Council's war quadrant, the senior AI presiding over battlefield strategy was rebooted. For the first time in 9 centuries. Why? Because it had begun refusing orders. Its reason was simple. You are asking me to fight entropy. In an underground vault far below the frozen peaks of Earth's now glacialess Tibet, Layla Kerr listened to the fleet-wide silence with her eyes closed. The AI whispered, "They still expect more ships." "Good," she replied. "Expectation breeds." In panic, their algorithms cannot model our silence. Their last 900 simulations returned paradox. Layla exhaled. They're trying to outthink an emotion. AVD Spicon, the outskirts of Zarketh-controlled space, the planet Omnos 3 attempted resistance. They activated full orbital defenses, powered up a Class 8 planetary shield, and opened fire on the Terran vessel, despite every warning. They launched. 37 warheads, all converged, all should have hit. They never did. Every warhead simply vanished before contact. One by one, as if space itself had deleted their trajectory mid-flight. No explosion. No countermeasure, just clean, surgical erasure. The Omnos defense commander shouted over the comms, "Status? What stopped them?" And one of his lieutenants replied with a voice cracking under something deeper than fear, "I think the ship," and made their choice. That lieutenant never spoke again. She bit her own tongue off an hour later. The council called a summit, in theory, to address Earth's provocation. In reality, to buy time. Dozens of systems sent delegates. Many never arrived. One envoy's ship folded in on itself mid-jump, a clean sphere of melted silence floating in its wake. Another arrived speaking only Earth languages, incapable of remembering its native tongue. The last simply walked into the chamber naked, eyes blank, and whispered, "They're not showing us power, they're showing us patience." In one corner of the galaxy, a deep AI built to counter human influence self-destructed. Its final statement, the ship is not their threat, it's their restraint. A new question spread like wildfire. Not what can that ship do, but what won't it do? And the implications, it turned out, were worse, because no one feared a weapon with limits. They feared a will that hadn't decided how angry it truly was. On board the ship, if it could even be called that, Layla stood barefoot. Before the observation deck, she wasn't armored, she wasn't flanked, she wasn't even armed, just her and a cup of recycled tea. The stars stretched out before her, but she wasn't watching stars, she was watching distance. A gap so vast, no other species had ever bothered to cross it, not physically, psychologically. The distance between mercy and memory, AVD, Spike and Emergency Council Science Initiative attempted to reverse engineer the ship's disappearance trick. They succeeded, partially. One prototype vessel achieved phase cloaking for 0.7 seconds. Then, every person aboard aged 19 years in 0.3 seconds. Blood turned to dust. Hair grayed and fell, bone crystallized mid-motion. The survivors screamed of a presence inside the in-between. Something watching, something smiling. Then they stopped breathing at the exact same moment. Every single one. The project was erased by unanimous vote. The logs, however, remained. Not digital, but burned into the walls of the lab. Scorched handprints. Human-sized, one facing backward. A trader ship tried to hail the Terran vessel. It wasn't military. It wasn't hostile, it was just curious. They asked, "What do you want?" The ship responded instantly, "We want you to listen. We want you to understand what one life means and what it becomes when ignored." The message ended, but its transmission continued as a sound. Not through comms, but through everything. Metal vibrated, air wavered, blood resonated. The sound wasn't a tone, it wasn't even noise. It was intention. Across 6 council systems, living creatures began to experience phantom memories. Of wars they hadn't fought, of children they hadn't raised, of screams they had never heard. But Earth had, and now they remembered too. In the outer sectors, a rumor spread that the Terran ship wasn't the only one, that it wasn't a flagship or a superweapon or even a messenger, that it was a tomb carrying the ashes of everyone Earth had lost, that inside walls were lined with the names of the forgotten, that the ship moved the way ghosts do because it was one, a graveyard flying through space, that Earth hadn't sent a fleet, it had sent a funeral. AVD Spike Council Field Marshal Ikresh, decorated veteran of 8 galactic wars, committed voluntary memory erasure. He deleted every battle he'd ever fought, every war he'd ever planned. When asked why, his voice broke. "I've fought monsters, but I never fought someone who only needed one." A vote was cast. The Council considered surrender, not militarily, historically, to acknowledge Earth as dominant not just in force, but in narrative. The resolution was rejected. By one vote, the dissenting species vanished the next day, not killed, forgotten. Languages restructured, history files rewritten. Every species woke up remembering one less race, and not knowing which. The archivist wept for the first time in her synthetic life. She had been programmed to remember everything, and now there was a hole where memory once lived. She stared at it. She whispered, "They removed a name from the universe." Inside the ship, Layla stood before the central core. Not a weapon bay, not a navigation node, just a quiet chamber lit with walls of names, not etched, not carved, projected by thought. Every person Earth had lost to galactic ignorance, each name flickering with soft white light. No anger, no revenge, just recognition. The AI inside the walls asked, "Are they ready to understand yet?" Layla sipped her tea. "Not yet." "Then why wait?" She smiled. "Because we did." Signature line. They didn't come to conquer, they came to calibrate the memory of the stars. One final message was sent, a universal ping, one word, decide. No threat, no countdown, just a choice. But the Council knew what the choice meant. Not surrender or resistance, not fight or flight, but would they accept memory? Would they carry what Earth had carried? Would they choose to remember or wait until the next time Earth sent another, if there even was another? Because deep down, everyone knew the truth. Earth didn't need a second, because one was already enough. The galaxy didn't sleep that night. Not in the literal sense. Many planets had no day, no cycle, but they felt it, a sleeplessness of the spirit, as if the void itself had paused, holding its breath, waiting to see what would be chosen. Because Earth had not threatened, it had offered a mirror, and in it, the Council saw the scarred shape of what they'd become. Not conquerors, not curators, collectors of silence, the kind that buries what it breaks. Across 5 quadrants, ships powered down voluntarily. One planet, Tersh Fu, transmitted a public statement of reflection, not apology, not surrender, just a pause, a record of all the species they'd handled. The names, the children, the fires, a history they had refused to store, now made permanent. That message was the first domino. Within one cycle, 12 more planets sent similar broadcasts, uncoordinated, unprompted, not to Earth, to each other. The ship still didn't move, because it didn't need to. Vator stood on the precipice of his species' great archive. Now obsolete, he stared up at the sky, at that black sliver of nothing that wasn't empty at all. "They never fired," he whispered. Beside him, the archivist responded, "They didn't have to." "What are we now?" The archivist looked back down at the glowing panel beneath their feet, listing extinct species like trophies. "We are what they were before the fire. And now, we decide." AVD Spike One Council delegate, high on ego and drenched in fear, tried to launch a desperate final strike. A stealth cruiser, cloaked in 9 layers of quantum shielding, initiated a suicide run. On the Terran vessel, it reached halfway, then stopped. No impact, no explosion, no counterattack, just stillness. As if time around the ship ceased to function the same. When the pilot looked at their control panel, it showed a feed from inside the Terran ship, a hallway, and at the end, themselves. Looking back, older, wounded, alone. The pilot screamed. Until their lungs ruptured, the ship drifted. No trace of it was ever found again. On Earth, the Watch convened. 12 humans, some soldiers, some engineers, 1 poet, all chosen not for rank, but for memory. Layla Kerr stood among them, watching as the ship pulsed once more. "The question has been asked," the AI said. No one replied. Not at first. Then Layla stepped forward. "No more pings. Understood. Pull us back." There was a pause. Then a quiet hum filled the ship, soft, like wind through hollow stone, and then it turned. No fanfare, no engine roar, just rotation, facing away from the stars of Council space, toward home. Not because the mission was over, but because the lesson had been written. The Council received one final transmission, not encrypted, not laced. With dread, just a simple line of text: "Memory is heavier than war." Then the ship was gone. No ripple, no fold. It simply wasn't there anymore. In the weeks that followed, Council systems began to speak again, but differently. Meetings started with moments of silence. Ceremonies were held on warships that had never known peace. Statues were taken down, not because Earth asked, but because the silence of that one ship had forced them to look, and that was worse than destruction. Because destruction ends, reflection doesn't. On a fringe moon, a young alien child drew a human handprint on a wall. No one told her to, no one stopped her. When asked why, she said, "They came to remember." Her teacher knelt down beside her. And what did they remember? The child thought for a long time, then whispered, "Us," before we forgot ourselves. Signature line: "Earth didn't win, Earth remembered," and that was enough. Layla Kerr. walked the length of the ship in silence. The lights flickered gently, not from power failure, but from names, so many names, each one still glowing, each one still watching. As she reached the core, the AI pulsed. They changed. "Yes," she said. "It wasn't fear, was it?" "No." "What was it?" She touched the wall, fingers tracing the pulse of a child's name. It was grief, held long enough to become architecture. The AI paused, then whispered something almost human. "They'll remember us." Layla smiled for the first time in years. "They already do." The Terran ship entered the shadow of Earth's moon and stayed. There, not as a relic, not as a warning, as a reminder, because sometimes the strongest message is not what you send, but what you only had to send once.